Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start the conference and Bailey Matheson will do the civic welcome. So I'm going to hand over to Bailey Matheson.
Thank you very much, Bailey Flanagan, Minister, members of Council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of Lord Provost Cameron to officially welcome you to our magnificent city chambers for the 4th annual Conference of Community Councils in Glasgow. Minister, as you know, the network of active community councils is nowhere healthier than in Glasgow. This is a tribute to you, community activists, for your sense of civic responsibility. But I am also proud that no council in Scotland is more proactive in promoting and supporting community councils than Glasgow City Council. We are the only authority which funds a newly expanded resource centre where staff are exclusively dedicated to supporting you. And I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Margaret Stirling and all of her staff for her week in, week out efforts. A huge amount of good work goes on across this city. There are also at least as many opportunities as challenges for community councils, not least community council participation within the community planning structures at local level, especially in the newly revamped area committee structures. I'm sure you agree with me that those who moan that they are not listened to are those who do not effectively use the influence that they have. That's not you. If it were, you would not be here this morning. You have chosen a most topical, and I'm delighted to say controversial, theme for this conference: challenging antisocial behaviour. I know that you will all enjoy the high-powered speakers and facilitators. I hope that you find the city chambers to be an agreeable venue. We all need a roof over our head. And on behalf of Lord Provost Cameron, please be assured of the admiration and ongoing support of Glasgow City Council. Thank you all.
This is the 4th annual seminar, and this year the topic will be challenging antisocial behaviour. During the 2001 seminar, Walter Morrison MBE, who was the chair of Corkerhill Community Council, said that conference should come up with ideas so that we can join the big issues of the day. Walter is not here this year, but would surely agree that this year's seminar does deal with one of the biggest issues of the day: antisocial behaviour. Today's seminar will explore antisocial behaviour in detail. It is the first opportunity for politicians and stakeholders to discuss the issues with grassroots organisations such as community councils. The format for today has been changed from previous years to allow more time for workshops and feedback. We have introduced new technology called Option Finder. It's a new voting system, and you will have the opportunity to vote on the many issues of antisocial behaviour. Questions today will be taken at the panel session, which is after the workshops and not directly after the speakers. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Councillor Jim Coleman, Deputy Leader of Glasgow City Council.
Concerns over antisocial behaviour, crime and poor environments feature strongly among the issues that concern all the communities in Glasgow. We are more than aware of the importance of these issues for individuals, our communities. Glaswegians have consistently told this Council in recent research that these issues are top of their priorities. The Council welcomes the Scottish Executive focus on this issue. Public meetings across the city have shown that concern expressed by Glaswegians in relation to antisocial behaviour and the detrimental impact it can have on individuals, families and whole communities. However, there is no single quick fix solution to the deeply rooted problems that create antisocial behaviour. Whilst youth crime and disorder is a serious issue, we believe that the positive contribution young people can make to their communities cannot be underplayed. For example, 92% of young people in Scotland will not offend. Referrals of young people to the Children's Reporter for offences are down 19% in the last 3 years. That's a very significant figure. Children and young people are an essential part of this city's future, and the Council and its partners are instrumental in providing the opportunities to help them on the path to positive outcomes in becoming Glasgow citizens of tomorrow. In terms of strategies to enhance the quality of life and the environment within which Glaswegians live, we already deliver a number of services, including the Clean Glasgow team to tackle graffiti, fly posting, fly tipping, needle disposal and general area clean-ups. The fast tracking of the removal of abandoned cars was initiated in Glasgow during the year 2000 in response to escalating numbers. We have also invested considerably in the citywide strategy, Street Watch Glasgow, for public space CCTV, using state-of-the-art technology in a single system that is the largest of its kind in Scotland. The system addresses not just crime and the fear of crime, but a broad range of community safety issues. It is already proving its worth in addressing various forms of antisocial behaviour by capturing and sharing information with key partners. Because we must realise the reason we are in this position where communities do not feel safe. The place is covered in graffiti, there is litter, there is dog fouling, there is fly tipping, there is antisocial behaviour, and a lot of our communities, a lot of the people that carry out these actions are Glaswegians. They are our people. So the big question is, yes, we will bring forward the new initiatives, but the people have got to back it. It's their city. They've got to support it. Because collectively, we allowed this to happen in the first place. It became the norm to accept dog fouling. It still is the norm for thousands of people to drop litter. What a lot of people in this room consider antisocial behaviour, to hundreds of people is normal behaviour. So collectively, we've allowed this to happen, and if we're going to change it, we must do it collectively. The Council will commit its resources and its programmes. We will work with the Executive, but we must change attitudes in the city. Certainly among our young people, as I've outlined earlier, we are starting to do that. But we all have a responsibility, and if we work together, we can start to address it and hopefully start to change things for the better. Thanks very much.
Can I thank you very much for the invitation to speak here this morning. I am so pleased to be here because obviously Glasgow is my home city, and I don't need to apologise to you for speaking so quickly. That I usually have to do everybody else to go, and I can speak in my normal accent. But also obviously because as a Glasgow MSP I work very closely with community councils obviously, and deal day and daily with the issues of antisocial behaviour. So can I congratulate you on coming out on a Saturday morning in such numbers to tackle such an important issue. I think it is a real sign of your commitment to your city and to your communities that you're prepared to do that, and to everybody else who's here. I think it's a sign of the strength of community councils in Glasgow, but it also is a sign of the significance of this issue and what it means to us and to our communities. So I hope at this conference today there are two very clear messages. One is that we must be prepared to listen and respond to the experiences of those who live with antisocial behaviour. And I think if one thing struck me in all the experience I've had in recent years about it, is that it is a very serious issue, and it is not something that's just annoying to people. It's not just an irritation. It's not just low-level disorder. When you hear about some of the real experiences, the gang violence, the threatening, the intimidation, the absolute devastation that goes with some aspects of antisocial behaviour, you realise that that's why it's been a focus for community organisations like yourself, and now it must be a focus for ourselves. So let's be clear that this conference is about a message that says, let's listen to those who live with antisocial behaviour before we dismiss it too easily. And I have to say I've been a wee bit upset about people who dismiss it when they don't have to live with it. I mean, I have been up closest in Glasgow where they have been taken over by people who drink in them all night. I've been in housing estates in Scotland where there have been huge investment programmes, but people don't want to live there because they've been taken over by young women who tell me if they open their door with their toddlers, they have to step over vomit and urine before they can get out their front door. So let me say a few words about the approach that the Scottish Executive is taking. It falls into three categories. One is about prevention, the other is about voluntary intervention, and the final, and perhaps most controversial, is about sanctions. Already, you could argue, broad efforts are taking place on the prevention front, and Jim Coleman focused on them this morning. In Glasgow, this is very significant, and a lot of very good work is undertaken in Glasgow. It's about investment in leisure services, about investment in regeneration, investment in social work and other critical services, investment in youth work. And all of this must continue, and we will continue that kind of investment and develop policies on that front. But we all know that that's not the complete answer. More has to be done. And we all know that antisocial behaviour still takes place when there has been great improvement in facilities, either in housing or in youth facilities or whatever. Far too often we've been told from local communities, the police and others, that if the perpetrators are under 16, it would seem that very little can be done. And again, I think we have to come to terms as a society, if you like, as a community amongst ourselves, that that does happen in too many cases, and that whatever is being done isn't working well enough. So it's time to recognise that something has to be done, to draw the line and state categorically that certain behaviours in our communities will not be tolerated. And I would argue very passionately that that's not only a service for the victims, that's a service actually for the perpetrators. We cannot live in a society where we are prepared to live with 14 and 15-year-olds doing what they do and say it's okay for them as much as it's not okay for the victims. It's not in the interest of those young people to allow this behaviour to carry on unchecked and allow them to progress through life without any concern about that. The most important focus of this bill will be its implementation, and in due course we will give this equal emphasis, because we know, as I was referring earlier, that the Scottish public have very high expectations of this legislation. So can I just say your presence here is a very important and significant contribution to the debate as we look through the details of what can be done to make sure that we implement a successful approach to antisocial behaviour. And I'm very interested to hear the experience of people here today. Everyone has the right to be safe and live in peaceful, attractive communities, and all must be prepared to recognise the challenge we face, and we must be determined to take action. Because I think if we deliver the right partnership between the executive, the local authorities and the communities, we can at least start and at least begin to tackle antisocial behaviour. Thank you very much.
Well, Bailey Flanagan, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, can I first of all say how glad I am to have been invited along to this august gathering this morning. My remit is to talk to you this morning about one of the initiatives that has been taken with a view to trying to tackle antisocial behaviour, and that is the Hamilton Youth Court. Now, if I display a bit of enthusiasm about this Youth Court project, you'll need to forgive me, because it'll come as a surprise, I think, to some of you that anybody can say good and political initiative in the same breath. But I do genuinely think, from my short experience in this youth court pilot, that here we have a good political initiative. There are three principal features of the youth court, none of which seems to be anything other than a damn good idea. One, you get them into court quickly. Two, you get them through the court quickly. And three, at the end of that process, you've got something half decent to do with them that's got a fighting chance of tackling the offending behaviour. Those are the three features of the youth court. And if there's anybody in here who thinks that ought to be controversial, talk to me afterwards, because I myself don't see it. A third of the young people referred to the children's panel who are persistent offenders, a third of them are originally referred to the panel because of physical abuse. A third of them are originally, this is persistent offenders we're talking about, a third of them are referred to the panel for lack of parental care, and the other third are there for a variety of reasons that include sex abuse or serious physical neglect. I mean, they're shocking facts. There are 9 sheriffs in Hamilton Sheriff Court. If you got rid from Hamilton Sheriff Court of the persistent young offenders, mostly male, who are in and out of that place to a band playing between the age of 17 and about 23, at which point they find a job and a good woman, or both, and are never seen in the place again. As everybody in here will know, there's many a parent whose heart is roasted by the drug problem that their child has, and who wish to God that they knew where their their child was at night. Well, the electronic monitoring, either now in the youth court pre-conviction or in any court post-conviction, can underpin what the family and maybe the social work department are trying to do with them, and has their parents knowing where they are at night. So those, in any event, are the essential features of the youth court. The sheriffs have been criticisable in the past for being ivory tower dwellers. The ivory tower has fell down as far as the youth court is concerned, because we are at last talking to people. I would like to think the policymakers who are here, and they're here in droves, the policymakers, they're here in droves because they know that you are the people who know what is happening in these communities, and who have got something to say about how the policymakers might tackle that. I'm here to listen to people from the community councils, and perhaps particularly affectingly from the youth parliament and the secondary student council, people who are here who by God know what's going on in the schools and the housing schemes. Anyway, thanks very much. I'm sorry to have overstayed that.
I'd like to thank Sheriff Nielsen for giving us such an informative insight into the youth court. We're running slightly behind schedule, so we're going straight to the workshops now, and if people could then come back here for 12 o'clock, we would continue with the proceedings on time. So if delegates would like to head for the workshops, that'd be great. Thanks.
Could I ask you all to take your seats now, as we are now about to start the final session. Thank you very much. The next session will be using the option finder, which is the little keypad that you should find on your chair, and we'll take you through a series of questions and answers which you will give in accordance with the instructions and as they appear on the screen. So without any further ado, can I hand over to Bernard Ponsonby, who will now take us through the remaining part of today's session. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, and I know that the kick-off's at 3 o'clock, so we're not going to stay here much beyond that time, but I'm also conscious of the fact that a number of you will want to make contributions and questions, and when we go through the voting session, what I plan to do is to have an open session for 10 minutes where we can just get feedback from you in order that we can cover the ground that you were discussing on the individual workshops. Everything in terms of the voting procedure today will be confidential, but given that there's 350 people here, what we're about to do in the course of the next half hour or so is a pretty comprehensive survey in terms of the views of people within community councils on the subject of antisocial behaviour. The first question is, are you 1 male, 2 female? Hit 1 for 1, 2 for 2. If you're not sure, I'll give you the name of a consultant. Right, second question, what age are you? 1 under 16, 2 16 to 24, 3 25 to 44, 4 45 to 64, and 5 65 plus. Okay, the next question is, what hat are you wearing today? 1, are you representing a community council? 2, are you an elected politician? 3, are you a Glasgow City Council officer? 4, other public sector officer, or 5, other. Okay, the next one, which part of the city do you represent today? 1 north, 2 south, 3 east, 4 west, 5 all of Glasgow, or 6 other. Final one, 15% from the north of the city, 33% from the south side, 10% from the east end, 22% from the west, 13% representing all of Glasgow, and 7% other. To what degree does antisocial behaviour impact on your community? Now, each of the following list is to be rated in a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 equals not at all, and 10 equals a serious impact. And the first issue is nuisance neighbours. How much of an issue is that for you? If you think it's not at all, you press 1. If it's a serious problem, 10. Leave it to your judgment whether you think it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. The second issue is harassment and intimidating behaviour. To what extent is that a problem? If it's 1, it's not at all. If it's a serious problem, go 10. If we could try and just keep the pace of the voting up here. And the third issue is drunken and abusive behaviour. If you don't think it's a problem, press 1. If it's a serious problem, press 10. And the next issue is vandalism, graffiti and other deliberate damage to property. If it's a serious problem, again, 10. If it's not a problem at all in your area, it's 1. And the next issue is fly tipping. How much of a problem is that in your area? And the next issue is litter. How much of a problem is that? And the next issue is dog fouling. Okay, that's an average response to all of the polls. I should say that you will get a detailed breakdown of all of these results, which will be mailed out to you by the Council. So we won't actually spend too much time laboriously reading out everything. We now want to go into specific questions based upon the workshops that you've just had. And the first is, how do you think communities should be involved in deciding what happens to those involved in antisocial behaviour? If you think the community shouldn't be involved at all, press 1. If they think it should be through their local residents association, press 2. Through their local community council, press 3. Through their local safety forum, press 4. Through their locally elected member of the council, press 5. 6 for other, and 7 if you don't know. Okay? And the result of that, the biggest section there, is 27%, that's through the community council, 23% through the locally elected member. The next question is, to what extent do you think communities should make recommendations on what kind of reparation offenders make to communities? 1, not at all. 2, a limited amount. 3, a moderate amount. 4, a large amount. 5, if you don't know. 46% think to a large extent communities should make recommendations on the kind of reparation offenders make to communities. That's maybe something that the Sheriff can pick up in the question and answer section. Moving on to the issue of CCTV, do you support the use of public space CCTV to fight crime, fear of crime and support community safety initiatives? 1 is yes, 2 is no, and 3 is don't know. And the results of that, 92% yes, 6% no, and 2% don't know. And the next question, do you support the use of public space CCTV as an evidence gatherer or witness in the pursuance of antisocial behaviour orders? 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for don't know. And the results of that, 91% yes, 6% no, and 3% don't know. And the next question on the issue of CCTV is, do you think the information captured by CCTV should be shared with the police? 1 yes, 2 no, 3 don't know. And the result there, 95% yes, 3% no, 2% don't know. And do you think the information should be shared with local authorities? 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for don't know. And the result for that, 78% yes, 16% no, 6% don't know. And should it be shared with housing associations? 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for don't know. And the results there, 74% yes, 21% no, and 4% don't know. This is the final question. How much do you think antisocial behaviour affects the public's mental health? 1 for not at all, 10 for a lot, in the sliding scale of 2 to 9. Let's just take a look at the results on that. Well, 40%, quite a lot there on that question. Again, you'll get the results of all of these questions. I want to just throw it open at this stage before we go to specific questions for general contributions on absolutely anything. Who would like to start us off today?
Alan Roderick, Broomhill Community Council. Once again, the thing started on time but got lost somewhere along in the opening part, and we were between 35 and 40 minutes late going to the workshops. We're scheduled to finish at 1 o'clock. I propose once again, for the second or third time, that this thing running on a Saturday morning doesn't run long enough. And if Glasgow City Council is supposedly giving us better than just lip service by having this annual Community Council seminar, the thing should run till 2 or 3 in the afternoon, irrespective of whether Scotland's playing Holland or Rangers are playing Celtic or the Open's on or the Grand National's on or whatever else. The purpose of being a community council, as far as I'm concerned, is for the betterment of the area that I live in. And if I don't get meaningful support from the city council, I'm wasting my time, and so is everybody else in this hall. Thank you.
Can I take it from that contribution, the applause, that we'll just extend the session to whenever you feel as if every point has been raised? Is that okay? Is that, do people feel very strongly that you should finish at 1? Right, but let's take a show of hands on this. Let's try and be democratic. How many people think you should finish at 1? Right. How many people would like to run it on? How many people would like to run it on? I think there was a slight majority for finishing at 1. I'll tell you what, we'll split the difference. If anybody really wants to make a contribution beyond 1, we won't finish up. I accept that there may well be people on the platform who have commitments and may well have to leave. Right.
This I regard as a bogus occasion anyway, but assuming that it is a community council thing, why are the panel not composed of community councillors? Why are we to listen to all the spin from Edinburgh?
Margaret, you've read all the time that there's hundreds of thousands of pounds coming into the communities. How do we get a hold of this kind of money? Especially on the community centres and childcare facilities. Trying to get this money is absolutely ridiculous, so it is. You have to fill in papers after papers after papers and still don't get it right at the end of the day. we're still not getting that money.
Can I just say to the gentleman about who wants the community councillors in the panel, you're very free to join me if you want. You know, I was invited here and that's the reason why we're here. It's not because we don't want to hear, you know, your own views and recommendations. Two very significant points, I think, about resources, and some of this will be an issue for the local authority as well. There is one reality in my world, which is we never have enough money. I mean, we just don't. And I would always want to, some of my colleagues are here, and I would always want to fight with them so I can get more money into my budget, because I can always see more things that can be done. So I don't want to be complacent or defensive. You're quite right to make demands for your community and always to pressurise to give more, because things are far from perfect. And when I say we provided resources and facilities, that's true to a certain extent, but there is more to be provided, particularly when you're trying to divert young people from antisocial behaviour. We need as many facilities as we can. Having said that, and I could take you through all the different budgets. We've got youth crime budgets, we're now rolling out an antisocial behaviour budget. There is also the money that's given to local authorities to provide mainstream services in terms of youth work and leisure facilities and such like. You know, there are substantial resources there, and we do expect them to go into local communities and through social inclusion partnership monies and all the rest. But we work in a partnership way with people. We do work with local authorities, we work with other organisations, and they make the decisions locally about what their priorities are and about what they think things should be doing. I mean, I think there are more imaginative things that can be done about making sure you maximise resources, which I think is this gentleman's point. If I have great buildings that shut at 5 o'clock, there's kids in the street. You know, I think there's a lot more work that can be done, and I think we need to get round the table with people and create the kind of environment where we just get working and get constructive solutions. But we would want to do that.
The council at the moment is having the best value review of its youth services, and that will include looking at probably what you're speaking about. But you're right, the young people we're dealing with today are entirely different for the generation that came before. They don't all work 9 to 5, and they don't go to bed at 10 o'clock. A lot of them just come out of the house about 10 o'clock. Now, that does not mean they're getting up to mischief or they're doing a lot of damage. That's just a lifestyle. Young people have got a different lifestyle from when I grew up. But it's true to say that our services have not kept up with that. And that's why we're looking at providing different services at different times and a different type of service to meet the needs that young people are telling us. And part of that exercise will be to listen to them and see if we can, hopefully, try and bend the resources to meet that. We are trying 1 or 2 pilots across the city where staff are actually out working after 10 o'clock at night, engaging with young people, getting to know them, getting to know what they're looking for. So you're right what you're saying, it does mean a sea change for a big organisation like the council to think that way. It means we've got to look at things differently, how we use our resources, more importantly, how we use our staff. And these are big concerns for the council, major issues, but we can't run away from it. We've got to face up to that. It's a different world and we've got to provide a different service.
Joe Kerr, Malton Community Council. For the fear of maybe boring people to tears, St Augustine's playing field in Malton, 4 years now we've been sitting waiting for something to happen. Help us to get the kids off the street. And I'm very disappointed at the fact that drugs did not come into play today, because I think that's the biggest scourge in any community. And if you're talking about antisocial behaviour, I believe that's at the root in most, not a few. Thank you.
Betty Brown, Garnet Hill Community Council. I think we have done a good job at challenging antisocial behaviour. We applied for CCTV, were turned down. So the youngsters were becoming a pest in the area. There was graffiti, they were noisy, they were drinking. So we sat down with the community police and we applied for funding, we were successful funding, and we set up, with the help of the community police, we set up a football league, a pool, a championship, and we took the boys away, boys and girls I might add, away for an adventure weekend. I think that's challenging antisocial behaviour. Now we've got turned it round. The boys and the community police are together, and I might say they've found another good way. They've found the girls, so we've got quite a happy place.
That's a bit of positive feedback. There's a lot more folk on the panel than there was this morning, and I'm conscious that people have given of their time, and some of the panel members here will have a slightly different perspective from the one that we heard from Margaret and Hugh this morning. Can I maybe just ask each of the panel members, I'm just going to go along here from left to right, to introduce yourself, say what you do, and maybe perhaps, rather than make a speech, just maybe make some observations and the kind of comments that you're making, starting with Catherine.
Catherine Dyer from the Procurator Fiscal's Office in Glasgow, and obviously we're very conscious of the mixture of communities. I thought it was very interesting, the meeting I was in, everybody was saying, well, there are things that go across all communities, there are also things that are specific difficulties in specific areas, and we've realised now that we really have to start listening to the communities and working with the police and yourselves to find out what is happening specifically in each area within Glasgow, so that we don't have a one-size-fits-all, but we're trying to look and see what are the problems for the particular community, and how can we, unfortunately, I wish my job didn't exist, because we're obviously at the end once police have had to report someone to us, but how can we then take that forward to try and work with the police and work with the communities to make this problem diminish, because it is a terrible problem for all areas of Glasgow.
I'm Mary Pagani, I'm Chair of Glasgow Children's Panel. The group that I joined this morning was very interesting also. We were talking about parenting orders for children. This is something that the Children's Hearing System has been interested in from its inception. I have to say that what we're looking for from the Council, and I'm sure you do too, is early intervention and services for children, to recognise these children very much sooner than the use that have been spoken about this morning, for there to be joined up services within the Children's Services Plan in the Council, and all the agencies within the Council, education and bringing in health and social work, to allow us to do our job when making decisions that will impact on children's lives, that the resources will be out there for them.
My name is Tom Philibin. I'm the Children's Reporter for the West of Scotland and cover Glasgow as part of that remit. I was very heartened by what I heard this morning in the group that I was in, and also the general comments, because sometimes when you're involved in services with children, you think that, in a sense, young people in Scotland are a bit under the cosh at the moment, and they are, in a sense, held responsible for a number of things that perhaps unfairly. However, it was good to hear that there's a general acknowledgement that there's a need to provide appropriate services and interventions for young people to make sure that they don't get involved in crime. I mean, we're not daft in the reporter service, so we know that young people get involved in crime and antisocial behaviour, and we know there are difficulties in dealing with them. But I think we have to be clear, there are no quick fixes in relation to young people and antisocial behaviour, or indeed antisocial behaviour generally, and we need to have that kind of integrated approach, because what's come out from the discussions I've heard are that it doesn't really matter so much the system that you deal with young people in. It has to be an effective system, and it has to have, a quick response. It has to have the outcome. It has to have an effective outcome that makes a difference. We really need to look at having a system that gives effective interventions at the end. There's no point in being quick at the front end, but there's nobody there to pick up, for example, the work needs to be done. And we know at the moment there are difficulties within the social work services and others in terms of staffing that make it difficult to meet the expectations of everyone involved. But we certainly are aware in the reporter service of the needs in communities to address these difficulties.
John McLean from Strathclyde Police. I've got responsibility for community safety. My comment would be I was very encouraged with the last speaker from the floor and the comments she made about community constables. When I get around about the force area, I find that most people wish that their community constables made of chocolate because they beat them, because they're doing a fantastic job out there. And there are lots of examples of community constables doing good jobs out there, along with the local authority, along with community councils. And that's an area that, as an organisation, we want to develop and grow to try and service the communities even more than we do just now.
Councillor Kirsty Mawson, representing the Wynford ward in Maryhill of Glasgow, and also the City Council's youth spokesperson. And I'm heartened today to see that there's some representatives from the Student Council who contributed to the group that I was in, and I'm sure contributed to all the workshops. And the point that the lady made, just towards the end, not Betty Brown, but the woman who spoke about the Scottish Executive perhaps running an ad campaign to try and encourage more people to actually participate in community councils. I think that one of the things that we should maybe do is actually gear that towards getting more young people involved in community councils, because they do have a voice, and a lot of them they do make it heard in the student council. So if we can engage more young people in community councils, then they're the people obviously that make the decisions that we're making are decisions that largely affect them. So I think that their voice should definitely be heard.
Right, Rosemary William, Levin Community Council. I would like to find out who removed the Loitering Act. We have good community police and they come to our meetings regularly, but they don't have any power now to move these characters on that are loitering. Who, would you like to answer that one to me? Who removed that act? Take the power out of the community police's hands?
There are complications into how it was actually removed. My understanding is, I'm just looking to double check with one of the officials, that it was removed by the last government, effectively. But no, in 1972 it was removed. The Civic Government Scotland Act. But I'm sure we can get you proper information on that.
Well, can I maybe make a suggestion, Margaret? If you get the lady's name, you can write to her. If you give the minister your name, just at the end, she'll write to you specifically on your point. I think that's perfectly fair. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mary Kearney from Anderson Community Council, and I would like to know, how long does the victim have to suffer the antisocial behaviour problems before the nuisance neighbours get put out, and how do you rehouse them? Do they go through the same procedures like the Glasgow City Council's equal opportunity policy, and just like everybody else? Do they apply just like everybody else, or do they get rehoused?
Hi, I'm for the Student Council, and I'd just like to say that the way the voting was run at the end, where there was the ones where you could choose how you think we should tackle antisocial behaviour, I think you should have been able to pick more than one option, because it's not really just one thing that's going to solve it. It's kind of everything collating together and everybody working together to try and solve the problem. It's not just one thing that's going to get rid of this problem that we've got.
Can I ask why it is that with the successive changes in local authorities, the constitution of local authorities, that most of the acts known in the old days as consolidation orders, which allowed reasonable powers to the city fathers, these were taken away, and this to a large extent has tied the hands of the police. And if the people on the platform don't know, then I suggest, and I'm not trying to be cheeky here, incidentally, I'm East Govan Community Council, a former councillor and a former magistrate in the old Corporation of Glasgow. And we had a lot of powers in those days that could be applied in the local courts. These actions disappeared because some people seem to have the idea that if you pat some folk in the head, you'll gain respect. That law has lost the respect because people now seem to think they can do whatever the hell they like, and to hell with the rest of the community.
It's a crucial point. Hugh, could I maybe get you to sort of respond to that? I know you're looking at me as if to say, why are you asking me?
Well, I mean, I dare say that there's a lot in what the Speaker has just said. Obviously, that was a political decision in the early 80s to remove these powers. And plainly, again, I have to watch what I'm saying because I'm not supposed to be political, at least not in public. But certainly, if, as the Executive seem to be, they're serious about trying to involve the community in decisions and to, if you like, make the justice system more sensitive to the needs of communities, then there's obviously an argument for empowering local elected representatives in a way that they've been disempowered to some extent in the early 80s, but it's obviously not something that I can comment on any further than that. But there's obviously an argument. For that.
I'm Margaret Begum from Tory Glen Community Council,
amongst other things. I work with other groups, including the Social Inclusion Partnership, who have brought an awful lot into the area. At present, we're opening up old shops. We have the children and family drama. They have a graffiti class for other ones. They have dancing classes, you name it. But the big problem is we do not have premises. We're doing everything in our power to help the youth in the area, but we don't have premises. In years to come, they're upgrading the sports field. They'll have a campus for Langside College, but then that's using the part of the sports field. But other than that, we're just doing our best, and there's a lot being done in the area. And we've got youth shelters also, where the youth can go and do their own thing.
Ralph Green, Hillhead Community Council. I'm just conscious that in terms of, as we move into an anti-social behavioural strategy, that we do reflect that within this society, that the highest suicide rate which exists with young men between the ages of 15 and 24. And in addition, in supporting that situation, we have to put in resources to support young men. They're often the target for dissension, but I think we should reflect, and in addition to that, that young men, in terms of assaults, also are the biggest assaulted.
Thanks very much. My name is Tom McMarkin. I'm from Des Moines Community Council. My questions to the Scottish Executive and the Glasgow Council members is that the governing area the past 3 or 4 years, you're talking about antisocial behaviour. Well, I think the council's antisocial behaviour in government, because what they've tried to do in the past is to put a waste disposal in the governing area, and now we've got clinical waste disposal in the governing area, a cement factory in the governing area, and they also, the problem is in the Chuka Hill area, they've knocked down houses in the governing area and they've only built factory units.
I just think the thing is that it's very clear that there's been lots of different contributions here. There are lots of things to be considered, and I suppose the thing is, at least we're starting down the path of doing that. This is the 4th conference that you've had, and it's quite clear that community councils are alive and well in Glasgow and have a lot to contribute, and I think it just shows us that people that are in a position where they're either part of the legal system or part of the process of decision making really have to pay attention to what is the wealth of knowledge that you have out there about what's needed in the communities.
Obviously my remit here today is looking after children from birth to the age of 16 and further on to 18. I'm very heartened, as I said previously with my group, that the amount of support there is out there for children and young people wanting to support them, but unfortunately not having the physical premises to do that. It's not all about the media who has, and certain others who have demonised children. Clearly today you're saying it's not all about the persistent young offenders. There's much more to antisocial behaviour than children, and I thank you for it.
There's a whole lot of very specific questions that I think were directed at me, which maybe I could talk to 1 or 2 people at the end about, particularly the housing question, because there's a lot of the different approaches we take. So maybe if I speak to the lady at the end about that, because I could spend all my time doing that one, I think. And any other specific question that was raised, particularly the issue about drugs. Can I just say very briefly in terms of the whole antisocial behaviour strategy, we have always said in the Scottish Executive there is a balance to tackling this problem that we've got. We have to put, and will continue to put in resources into supporting children, recognising the vulnerability of children and recognising the need for comprehensive services. But I think we're also saying something new and something different, and that's to say there is a problem of antisocial behaviour in our communities. There is a problem the way people perpetrate that. We must listen to the victims of that and the frustrations that they're having to deal with. We haven't quite got it right yet, and we need to look at the legislation, we need to get the agencies working together, and we need to listen to local communities. I think if we get that going, then we can actually make great improvements, and I think today's been a big help in getting us there. But this is just the start. We need to have a lot more work done, and we can't pretend a lot of this is very easy by just saying put in money, because it's a bit more complicated than that. But I think with energy and commitment, you can actually begin to tackle these problems. So can I just thank you again for the opportunity to be here and to hear all this today.
Like Jim Coleman, I think I see community planning as the big block forward, in the sense that together with stock transfer and other measures that have taken place, they provide a framework for community empowerment in a really big way in the city, taking major decisions at the local level. I think when you do that, then you're much better placed to look at issues like antisocial behaviour and to get into constructive and empowered dialogue with organisations like the police, the education service and the social work department and so on. I think also I would want us to be able to make use of the advantages of much of what we've got that's good in Scotland just now. I would mention as the children's spokesperson the children's hearing system. This involves people who live in local communities dealing with the real difficulties of the children who have problems in their families or who offend in these communities. I do think that sometimes there's not enough dialogue goes on between the people who are active in that and people who are active in community organisations. I think it would be helpful if that kind of dialogue could begin to be built up. And finally, I think that we do need to look again as a council that's working hard to try to develop a programme of supporting communities at what more we can do, and I think some good suggestions have been made here today.
As the council spokesperson on community councils, I am very pleased to know that Glasgow City Council fully supports community councils and is very eager for them to develop. A number of good points were raised today by delegates and by the speakers, and I, for my part, will be taking those points back to my colleagues on the Community Council Working Group, and we'll be looking at how we can implement the good suggestions, and if there's any questions that we're not sure of, then we will obviously look at how we deal with them as well. So I'm delighted that so many people came here today and they have made a positive contribution, and I think that's the way forward, and I hope obviously that we continue in that framework.